Hey there guys, how are you? So we got a brand new King Kong movie. That way Godzilla has someone to fight in a few years. And when they finally have that epic showdown, my money's on this guy right here. Because it's not about the size, it's about the agility and how you use it. I'm still talking about movies. It's getting weird. But either way, I think we can all assume how that movie's going to end. King Kong and Godzilla will team up in the third act of the movie to take down a bigger threat like Mothra or some shit. Now let's talk about Kong Skull Island. This is a new take on a classic story. In the early 1970s, a group of scientists are escorted by the military to explore a mysterious island. Now before we dive into Skull Island, I've always loved the concept of King Kong. I love those original films. I love the practical effects and the craftsmanship that went into making them. Now this movie stars a lot of great actors, 3 of which have been in Marvel films, and the other one was the dad in Roseanne. I love Roseanne. And Brie Larson was there, because King Kong needs to hold a woman in every movie. And think about this, I'm holding him in my hand, he's holding her in his hand. My whole life has been a lie. Now when it comes to the actors in this movie, I'm a fan of every single actor in this movie. Tom Hiddleston, John Goodman, Sam L. Jackson. But when you watch Kong Skull Island, everyone felt wasted. And you can't blame the actors, you can only blame the script because you have Tom Hiddleston's character. I love Tom Hiddleston. He played a great villain, Loki, in the Marvel Universe. But in this movie, he plays generic good guy hero who's just generic good guy hero. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like I need some fleshed out 25-minute backstory on some hero in a big budget B-rate monster movie with a giant ape. I felt like all the characters in this movie were written just to be sufficient enough to carry the story along and not really give you anything memorable to hold on to. Because here's my motto, when it comes to monster movies, no matter how great or intense that monster is up on the big screen, he's only as good as those characters in that movie allow him to be. And it's not like it's impossible to interject good characters in monster movies. And that's why we remember those movies, because they had great characters. Now on a positive note, I did enjoy John C. Reilly in this movie, because judging by the trailers, I thought he was gonna be a little bit too zany and over the top and comedic. I thought he was one of the better things about the movie, and I really enjoyed his backstory that starts off the movie and kind of leads you through the rest of it. But I will say I enjoyed Samuel L. Jackson in this movie, as I always do, because his shtick, it never gets old to me, and in this movie, it was a little bit one-dimensional at times, but he still has one of the best one-liners in this movie, and it's like, thank you for that, I needed that. And as far as his character goes in this movie, he just wants to destroy King Kong. He wants vengeance, he wants to kick ass, he wants to use napalm and burn everything. And it gets to a certain point where you just no longer buy into his character motivation because it doesn't make sense any longer. Now let's talk about Beast Mode himself. King, give me a banana and call me Kong. King Kong in this movie is awesome. Every time King Kong pops up on the screen, you're having fun, it's entertaining, it's always fun to look at. You have King Kong fighting other monsters on the island like skull crawlers, and then in one scene he's fighting a tentacle monster and he takes a bite out of it. I'm like, I like that. And I would say 90% of the time that King Kong's up on the big screen, he looks really good. The CG, the animation, I bought into it. But as far as that other 10% goes, there's a few scenes where he interacts with human characters and it just felt like they were looking at a green screen, but they weren't quite sure where to stare. Maybe it was just the lighting, but some of the visuals looked a little bit flat at times, especially when you have a human element and a CG element, and they don't mesh quite right. But the biggest positive I can give Kong Skull Island is King Kong is actually in the movie. It's not like this shit right here where you get 8 minutes of Godzilla in a 2-hour movie. I would say you get a solid 15 or 20 minutes of King Kong in this movie. But as far as that tone of that 2014 Godzilla film goes, and the tone of this new Kong Skull Island movie goes, tonally, they're very different movies. And the film Kong Skull Island almost feels like a Marvel-produced King Kong movie. I mean, it already has Loki and Nick Fury in it, so. And the reason I'm saying this and even talking about it is because I really enjoyed the tone of Skull Island. I thought it was the right tone to go after. Now, here are my final flicking thoughts on Kong Skull Island. Now, let me give you one more comparison between this movie and another movie. In 2005, Peter Jackson directed another King Kong movie, and here's what I want to say about that film. There is an awesome showdown between King Kong and T-Rexes where he's trying to save the damsel in distress. And that scene goes on for 5 or 10 minutes. It puts you on the edge of your seat. It's an intense situation, and I loved it. I thought it was one of the best scenes throughout that entire movie. So what I did is I took my favorite scene from King Kong 2005, and I compared it to my favorite scene in the new King Kong Skull Island movie. I took the best action scene containing King Kong in that movie, and I compared both scenes. And when I did that, I came to the conclusion in Skull Island, there's a few really intense scenes featuring King Kong fighting monsters, and they're entertaining, but I don't think they're memorable. There's not one action sequence in Skull Island that's better than that 2005 King Kong scene, and I really wish this new King Kong movie would have topped something that another King Kong movie did just 12 years ago. And I think that's a fair comparison to make. Both movies feature King Kong, and they're only 12 years apart. But that doesn't mean Kong Skull Island is a bad movie. I enjoyed every single scene with King Kong in this movie. And throughout the first hour of Kong Skull Island, it just felt like they were looking for any reason to play classic rock music from the 1970s. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. In the first hour of this film, they play probably 28 classic rock songs just randomly in every single scene. And for the most part, I thought this was a solid origin movie setting up the character of King Kong once again. That way they established the character, so when him and Godzilla fight, well, we actually know a little bit more about King Kong. But unfortunately, I'm split right down the middle with this movie. It's a 50-50. You have King Kong over here, all that's really good and entertaining, and then everything else, it's just there. So I'm going to give Kong Skull Island, was that Tarzan or King Kong? I don't know. I'm going to give this movie a C+, which is a positive grade. I did overall enjoy the movie. I just thought it was a little bit bland and right in the middle. So that's my take on Kong Skull Island. Now here's my question to you guys, and let me know down below. If you've seen the movie, what did you think about it? Or what is your favorite monster movie of all time? And you can't say Jurassic Park or Jaws. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my last movie review for Logan, where I berserker out. Links to all the good stuff down below, like my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon. Check all the links out down below. And make sure you subscribe. That way, I can see you next time.